What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube right now or you're going to listen later in the podcast itself, we appreciate you tuning in. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Overcast, and Radio Public. Brandon Stoll on the other side. I'm Stephen Priest Jr. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can find us at Brandon_Stoll for Brandon, at Stephen Priest Jr. for myself. We got a lot to get into today. But one main thing sticks out, mainly because he's 7'2" and playing the 2 guard, and that's Bol Bol. So we're going to talk about all this new video of Bol Bol coming out, how great he's been looking. The Nuggets' first scrimmage is tomorrow, so we got a lot to look forward to with that. And some Madden rankings came out for the Denver Broncos and really the rest of the NFL. And if you're going based off of the Madden rankings, the Denver Broncos will not have a good season. So just don't trust in that. Okay, if you've looked at the Madden rankings, it's going to be a long, awful season, VJ long season. That's what it's looking like. But a lot to get into today. Another fun show. But let's start with Bol Bol. I mean, yesterday, hold on. Before we get to Bol Bol, I have to squeeze in a Jokic just fanboy moment here.
Oh boy.
Did you see that video? And I sent it to you on Twitter of him pumping at the top of the key, blowing by Mason Plumlee. Haha, Mason, suck it. And then he's going down the lane, not for a layup, because usually that's probably going to be a floater in fat Jokic days. He's not going to get past that guy, but even if he does, by the off chance, maybe the guy trips over his shoelace or something, he's going to get to that free throw line and he's going to float that thing up. There's no way Jokic is going in for a contested layup or let alone a dunk because he couldn't even jump over a toothpick at that time. But now he's going down the lane and rising up, and he yammed it on someone. And Bol Bol was like, Bol Bol's 7'2", so he's taller than Jokic. He was like, I'm not going to contest that one. Jokic looks good. I said yesterday, his first step badge from 2K, it is now a silver. Contested dunk is now a bronze. He may have some intimidator going, even though that's only defensively. But Bol Bol didn't want any piece of that. What did you think of that video?
Honestly, I wasn't as impressed.
Oh,
as you.
We're already gonna start the day off wrong. Now we're already gonna start the day off awful.
I mean, I saw it, I watched it, and I was like, yeah, okay, good for you, Jokic. No, I mean, I don't know. He looks good, but to me, my camera's messing up. He looks the same. As far as just kind of what he does out there. Yeah, he dunked it, but I mean, I think any other time he uses that pump fake to get by guys. I mean, that pump fake does usually work. At least to kind of just get past someone, and usually he doesn't dunk it. Usually he either gets a nice pass off or maybe a floater, like you said. But I mean, yeah, the dunk was, I guess, impressive, but I don't know. It's Jokic.
How dare you? First off, that pump fake never works. I always laugh every time I try and see it because he's like, and then he takes that first dribble and the guy doesn't even have to slide. They're just kind of like, I'm still here with you.
I mean,
he at least created some separation from Mason Plumlee there.
I guess. Is Mason Plumlee the best defender, though? I mean, look.
Mason Plumlee's fairly athletic.
Yes, but I mean, I don't know. I wasn't as impressed.
Okay, can I just point out something? You're slamming Jokic today, and you had me just compliment Mason Plumlee in one sitting. Now I'm angry. This show has gotten off to a terrible start. I would like to restart it. Go on ahead.
All right, let me play the music here. No, I don't know. Look. I think everyone's freaking out about him. You know, at least, you know, is the weight going to affect him? Is he going to be worse? Is he not going to be able to post up down low as effectively? You know, is he going to be faster? Which he does look a little bit faster, yes. But we got to remember too, Jokic has never been athletic, and he wasn't athletic when he was skinny when he came into the league. Which you would think, you know, that would be probably the most athletic that we would have seen him. Until now. So even then he wasn't. So I don't know if I thought he was moving better or at least closer to what we saw in that video when the season got postponed. Maybe I just didn't realize that he wasn't, I guess, as athletic as I thought he was. I don't know. It just looked the only difference to me in that video was he dunked it. But he's had a couple of those dunks throughout the season and last season. So I mean, I've seen it before. If he's doing it a lot more often, and we're seeing him get 2 or 3 dunks a game, then yeah, that's a big difference. But other than that, I think he looks great, and I think he's gonna be, out of all the guys in the league, I don't think he's gonna be as affected by the break as most guys. I think there's only a few guys that will look like themselves and like they never had a 4-month, break. It's going to be LeBron. It's probably going to be Giannis. Jokic is up there. Honestly, I don't think James Harden will look like he really got a big break, or even Luka. Those type of players, but also guys that don't really use their athleticism, like Jokic. So I think, as long as guys were working out, at least certain guys were working out during the 4-month break, I don't think we're going to really see a massive difference, at least with their skill level and how they play. Now, as far as game shape and being able to play 8-10 minute stretches, that's probably not going to happen, obviously. But, being able to at least go out there and put up the numbers that they were putting up before the break and looking as good as they were, those guys should at least look the same. So should Zion. Zion will probably come out and be, at least when he gets back into the bubble, he should look a lot better too.
Speaking of Zion, there's an interesting, I don't know if you saw the poll, I think it was ESPN that they put up. Who do you want to start your franchise?
Luka.
Yeah, or Zion.
Luka.
So
that's easy.
But that's something we can get into earlier, because I still have some questions about Zion Williamson that I don't think anybody's willing to answer. So, but no, I was mainly impressed. One, because Jokic could pick up a Pop-Tart and I'd cheer for him, like the man's like, I'd clap. And so anything he does, like I'm just amazed by. He's truly a unicorn. If I could just like watch him, it's like how you're amazed by watching a lion in a habitat. Like I would just watch him. He's so awkward. Like when you see his picture as a kid and like how chubby he was, you never would have thought that this guy would grow up to be one of the best players in the NBA. He looked like he was just, binging, Serbian cartoons and eating chocolate, bars all day. That's just chubby and delightful.
I mean, that's what he was doing last summer.
Yeah. Okay. Let's not get crazy here. Okay. We don't have to go back to the past. Why do you have to go back to the past? Why do you have to revisit things? He was celebrating his horse's victory. And that's another thing. The video of him in the little chariot with his horse riding around on the track, like, oh my God, this guy's my hero, honestly. But no, I've never seen him do that before. The whole pump fake and blow by somebody, like actually blow by somebody. He's never blown by a guy and dunked it like that. Yeah. Like he got some elevation. We've never seen that. We've seen him.
We'll see when we get to games. To games.
I don't know if that's gonna work on like LeBron or anybody like that. He's not there yet,
right? And that also could have been
surprise some people.
Yeah, but we also got to remember that a lot of these plays or highlights, whatever they're called, whatever we're watching, that the NBA or that the Nuggets are sending out, those also could be designed plays. So it could be something designed to where Plumlee's supposed to let Jokic go by him, right? Because they're working on offensive plays, whatever, and we're gonna get to the bowl stuff, but a lot of those, like the left-handed pass that he had, that was a design play, right? He was supposed to get doubled. He knew what he was supposed to do already. So, Bobo's looking great, Jokic's looking great, but until we get into games, we don't really know anything, because for all we know, that was a design play. That was something where Plumlee was supposed to let Jokic go by, and Jokic was either supposed to, depending on what the defense did, and, coach was probably told them, hey, either, stay with your guy or go to Jokic. And he's supposed to read it, dish it, or lay it in, dunk it, whatever. So it could have been a design play. We don't know. It also could have been a 5-on-5. They were going, 100%. We don't know. But until we get into games, we don't really know how good these guys are really going to look. Other than the only thing that we can really judge off of these videos is really shooting. Because that's the one thing that if it's a contested shot, or a tough looking shot, then you know it's a tough shot, right? That no matter what. So that's really the only thing that we can judge off these videos. So it's
You hear that,
exciting.
Nico Hair? Nuggets PR? Brandon's saying that you're putting out fake news. That's essentially what he's saying.
I mean,
He's
we
saying
don't
you're spreading
know.
fake news.
We don't know what they're doing. We don't know what they're actually doing in those videos. Though a couple of plays by Bol Bol were really nice. The fadeaway shot that he hit, that's a tough shot. That's not some, hey, we're just kind of screwing around practicing. That was a tough shot. And I believe it was Jeremy Grant was on him, and Jeremy Grant was all over him. So, there's a couple, but the left-handed pass that everyone was freaking out about, I mean, you could tell whoever was supposed to be, I think he passed it to Plumlee, right? Or no,
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and watch
whoever
it,
he had passed it to, the person guarding that person came into double Bol Bol, but it was like a half-assed, kind of double. So, come on. And Bol Bol knew where he was going with that pass. That's a practice situation. You just whatever. Did a left-handed pass look nice? Yeah, it looked nice. But is he actually going to be able to do that in games full speed? I mean, is he going to be able to read that on his own and not be told, hey, this is what's going to happen? Or it's, 50-50, they're either going to stay or they're going to come double you. And the second he sees, whoever that was come off of him and double, I mean, he knew what to do. But in a full speed game, I mean, we don't know. For all we know, in a full speed game, going 100%, he's going to freak out and panic and throw it out of bounds. So, until we get to the games, we don't know anything.
You are just a crusher of dreams today. I don't even know if I want to get to the Bol Bol video now. Golly, did you sleep okay? Is everything going okay at home? You and Aaron all right? You're just, goodness. By the way, if you want to see a tough shot, just pan to wherever Jamal is at. Because Jamal can see a layup and he'll be like,
yeah,
step back a couple and just wait for the defender. I'd like 2 defenders over here so I can shoot a contested 37-foot jump shot.
Hey, he's practicing. He knows practice is a little too easy right now.
Speaking of someone who won't look like himself, have you seen, I know my haircut, and I apologize to everybody that watches on YouTube, because I have just completely given up on doing anything with my hair, to be honest with you. Ever since this whole thing started, I have not gone to the barber. I've been shaving my own head. I am that paranoid, but I just do not. I just throw on a hat and go to work. That's it. So I apologize to everybody watching on YouTube. But at the same time, speaking of someone that doesn't look like himself, have you seen Jamal's hair and beard?
He looks like Kareem. Have you seen photos of Kareem Abdul?
I was thinking early caveman. He is just
look up a picture.
Out.
Look up a picture.
I did see that,
the
side by side.
Yeah. He looks. It's weird. He looks identical. But yeah, you know what? I like it. Go for it. If you're not gonna I think he said he hasn't cut his hair or shaved since the since quarantine started and stuff.
Oh no, we can tell. Yes, we can tell.
I mean, hey, let it go until the end of the playoffs. It's it's the playoff beard or playoff hair. I don't know.
Jamal's gonna have one of those big afros like you see the people in 2K running around with, and his beard eventually.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
Out.
Let's have a big afro. That'd be funny. Watch Jamal go around with a big afro. It's something different.
All right, the Bol Bol video. I don't know how I feel about going here with you, but we're going to try it. Okay, obviously, to preface for everybody too, if there's any other Brandons out there, obviously we can't take much from practice and scrimmage highlights. I get that. But, I mean, to see him out there and be able to, I mean, you see what he's capable of. You see the flashes. I mean, there was that contested layup that Jokic throws to him, and he goes up, and I believe it was Jeremy Grant. I think it was Jeremy Grant, either that or Troy Daniels, one of the two. But, I mean, they jumped fully and extended, and the top of their hand came to, his elbow. So he still had a full, foot of length on them, if not more. But his hand is fully extended, and if you look to see where his hand is at, it is 3/4 of the way through the backboard. I was like, oh my God. This guy's length. Now, obviously, he's skinnier than a toothpick, but I mean, his length is insane.
Yeah, and it's something that I talked about. I think we talked about this either a week ago when we started getting photos and videos of him. or at least that first video, they look, he's what, 19, 20. I mean, he's really young. He hasn't played in the NBA. He's only played a few games in the G League. He barely played any games in college, I'm pretty sure, because he got hurt. So as far as him getting playing time when it matters, we're not sure. But he is someone, whether it's this season or next season, or the year after that, he is someone that they are going to need in order to beat the Lakers. At least the Lakers that are constructed right now. Because, and even the Clippers, the Bucks, all these teams that have the length that they do, they need him. And they need him on that weak side defense to help out. When the Lakers can go out and throw a lineup together with having, LeBron, Danny Green, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, and JaVale McGee, if they wanted to. They could put out 3 7-footers. Your shortest guy is like 6'6".
It's stupid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So and LeBron at 6'8" is playing at point guard, right? And you have JR or Danny Green out there as a shooter, and you have 2 or 3 7-footers. So in order to beat that team, or at least match up with that team, you're gonna need another guy. You're gonna need Michael Porter Jr., who's 6'10" and as long as what and weak side defense, it was actually pretty good during the season. He could get over, and it's because of that length. There's a reason why they went out and got Jeremy Grant. They need that, right? Now that you have Bol and you go ahead and draft Bol, who's 7'2", he's gonna help you a lot with that weak side defense. Now, as far as knowing the defense inside and out, and we're gonna see all those issues that MPJ had. Maybe Bol will be able to figure it out a little bit faster. But I mean, there's issues there, right? So are we gonna see him in the playoffs? I mean, unless there's injuries, unless there's some cases, I don't think we will. But when we get to that Lakers series, if they get past the Clippers in the second round and they play the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, I would not be shocked if the length is bothering them in games 1 and 2. I would not be shocked if Bol is playing, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and if it's working, 25, 30 minutes a game in that series, because they're going to need that. They're going to need, when you have your starting 5 out there and say they're completely healthy, you have your starting 5 out there, but off the bench, in that series, if you have Bol, MPJ, and Mason Plumlee come off the bench, and that's your 8 guys, and maybe a guy like, Jeremy Grant, Monte Morris, and you go a little bit deeper, but maybe you're not playing Gary Harris as much, or you're not playing Will Barton as much, or whoever, you're going to need that length, and they're going to be using it a lot more, at least in that series. Maybe against the Clippers, it depends on how that matchup works out. If they get Dallas in the first round, you might see a lineup where they go really big because Boban bothers them, Porzingis bothers them. So I don't know. It depends on the matchups that they get. That whatever lineups we'll see, it depends on the matchups. But everyone's getting excited, and I'm excited. But at the same time, I don't want to get our hopes up, and then Malone goes to his normal lineup, and we don't see Bol at all. So we are going to see him tomorrow night, though. I don't know. Do you know if that's going to be? Are we going to be able to watch that?
I know the Pelicans are, because it's against the Pelicans, right?
I have no idea.
I believe so. I think it is because I saw Ryan Blackburn. I believe it was him tweet out that they're going to stream it on their app or something like that. So I don't know if Altitude is going to be broadcasting that. Hopefully, or NBA TV. Hopefully we get a chance to watch that.
Yeah, hopefully, because so at least then we'll see Bol in these scrimmage games. Obviously, there's 4 or 5 guys that are not there yet or had just arrived or whatever. So they're only gonna have 9 guys tomorrow. So we'll for sure see Bol. But I mean, depending on how he is in practice, depending on how he is in these scrimmages, I mean, if he's going out there and just killing everyone, then he's gonna play. But I just don't want to get everyone excited because it's it's the same thing with MPJ at the start of the season. Or even that Indiana game when he literally won that game by himself, and the next game he comes out and plays like 10 minutes. So just, Malone is Malone. He's very stubborn when it comes to playing young guys. It's annoying, but they, at this point now, they need to win these games. So, you need your veterans out there. It's that simple. You need the guys that know the defense, because right now, offenses aren't going to be great. What is going to win these games, at least for the first, couple weeks, first month or so, is going to be defense. So they're going to need their best defenders out there. And if Bol Bol and MPJ aren't getting it defensively, they're not going to play.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this too on the last episode. And I just found it unlikely as well that, I mean, you have a guy in Michael Malone whose history now tells us he wants to win over anything before developing guys. And while that's not always a bad thing, because I mean, for him, at least before he signed that extension, I mean, he had 1 year left. His future's uncertain. So, I mean, who knows how much that played an impact into that. And plus, I mean, the guy just wants to win. And when you have a team that's built to win, do you want to throw out a rookie that you're going to have some growing pains, and maybe that takes off a 2 or 3 game wins, or maybe a little bit more than that? But at the same time, I just don't think we'll see at least Bol Bol in the regular action and playoffs. I think it's highly unlikely we see that. Obviously, I think he'll get some time in the scrimmages, unless, like I said last time, I mean, unless it comes down to injuries or a guy gets sick or a team gets ravaged by injuries.
I mean, they're missing a lot of guys.
That's what it's gonna have to be. I mean, that's how he's gonna get his minutes. Right. But other than that, I'm with you on this one. I don't think we should expect to see Bol Bol out there. But I was looking at his like physical stats. He's 7'2". He has a 7'8" wingspan, but they list him at 220 pounds. I don't know if he's more than 205, to be honest with you. Yeah. He is literally a toothpick. And for reference, Kristaps he's listed at 7'3", 240. And Kristaps isn't a big guy, but he at least has some meat on him.
Bol Bol's not 220.
I don't think there's any way Bol Bol is 220. Maybe he's just cracking over that 200 mark, but I don't think he's 220. And he'll be 21 years old on November 16th. So 2 days before I turn. However old.
Here's the thing, though, and I don't know what Bol Bol's contract situation is, because I don't think he has the normal rookie contract that like MPJ has. So they're probably gonna have to re-sign him. So, sooner than like a normal rookie contract would have to be, right? Is he?
So he's got this year, next year, and 21-22. He's under contract, and then 2021 he'll be an RFA.
Oh, okay. So they will have him as a restricted free agent.
So he's essentially he's under contract for 2 years, and 21 he's an
right,
RFA.
And then they get a match, whatever. Okay, never mind. They can lock him up. So so he's 21. MPJ is 21. Jamal is 22. So you're talking about those 3 guys, and Jokic is 25, I think, at this point. So when those guys are hitting their primes at 24, 25 years old, that's in 3 or 4 years. Jokic will be in the smack dab in the middle of his prime at 27, 28. I mean, look, I get everyone's excited and about this season and maybe even next season, but I mean, this is a long-term thing. If they can get these 4 guys for the next 5 to 7 years, this is their window is open for a lot longer than people realize. But
so Jamal will be 24 next February, and Jokic will be 25 next February.
Jamal's only a year younger than.
Yep, he's 23 right now.
Okay. But either way, I mean, that's a hell of a core. So,
I mean, these guys are either not in their prime or just entering it.
Right.
And Jokic is already a top 12, 15, if not 10 player in the league.
And think about this. When Golden State went on their run, Clay and Steph were like 25, 26. They weren't even ready. Like, the Nuggets aren't even close to where, and that was when they had won their first championship, that Golden State team, that they were 25, 26 years old, or maybe even, probably 26.
So that was what, 2015 that they won it?
Yeah. So how old is Steph now? Steph is what, 30? I believe.
Steph Steph is 32. He'll be 33 next
Okay,
March.
so in 20 that
So
was the
he's about
20
26, 27 ish.
that was the 2014-2015 season, right? That they won?
I think it was 15, 16. I
No,
think.
2016 was when the Cavs won.
So I mean, he was,
So
25,
the
26,
2014-2015 season, he was
28,
he was
24.
26 years old. So if we're going off of that clock, which is probably the normal clock as far as development and being able to win a championship around that age, Jordan was 27 when he won. LeBron was 27 when he won. So right around that age, 26, 27, 28 is when you're entering your prime. The Nuggets aren't even close. So at least with MPJ, Bol, and even Jamal is 3 years away. Jokic is 2 years away from that age. So they have plenty of time. And that's something that, people are going to have to be very, very patient with this team and with Malone, because MPJ has only played a handful of games at this point in his career. Bol hasn't played a single game. And these two guys are extremely talented. Jamal is only 23, and they are, and I've said this a million times, they're ahead of schedule. They should not have been a 2 seed last year. They should not have made it to the second round last year. Last year was supposed to be, or maybe the second round, but even then, they shouldn't have gotten to a game 7. It should have been a 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 seed. Maybe you get an upset and you get to the second round. That's where their clock should have been at. But instead, they were the second best team. They had the best record for the majority of the season, and they made it to the second round. They lost in a close game 7, in which they really should have won that series and gotten to the conference finals. So they are way ahead of schedule. But to think that their championship window is now or even next year, that's crazy. If they win it, great. That's bonus. But they're not there yet. So people who, if Bol doesn't play, if MPJ doesn't play in this playoff, they could use them. And there are two guys that they could really use their shooting, their offensive abilities, but they're too young at this point, and Malone can't really trust them defensively. So, when they don't play, people just need to be patient and realize that, that this is more so for Jokic and Jamal. Can Jokic and Jamal take that next step and really take this team over and lead them to the conference finals? Can those two guys do it? In order for them to win a championship, they're gonna need Bol and MPJ to be more than role players, probably starters. But Jamal and Jokic, those two guys, they need to hit that superstar level before they can even pay attention to Bol and MPJ and get them up to a star level. They need their main two guys to be up to a superstar level. And if they're not, they're never going to get anywhere.
And that brings up an interesting question for me. So, and I think you raise an interesting point too. Say the Nuggets go out there and Jamal doesn't look like he takes that next step. And this is specifically geared towards Jamal because, I mean, we already know where Jokic's place is in the league as a player. Can we really fairly blame Jamal if he goes out and plays similarly to how he played in the last playoffs? Because I don't think it would be fair if Jamal went out and, he does this usual 15, 12 points, 48, 30, and then throws out a 16-point stinker. I don't think it would be fair. Now, obviously it's not ideal. We want Jamal to take that next step, but given the circumstances, I mean, how can we judge these guys with this season fairly? I just don't think it would be right for people to. And I'm a big Jamal critic myself, but I just think if he played the same way, I mean, I don't know. I just don't think it would be fair. It's a tangent question, but that just came into my mind. Like for me, I can't really criticize Jamal if he goes out and doesn't really seem to improve on what he did last year, just given the circumstances of everything.
Here's the thing, and I know there's a lot of questions around Jamal, and I get those questions but here's the thing. Those questions come from the regular season. Those questions do not come from last year's playoffs. They don't. Because, and I'm looking at his playoff run, he had one game where he scored less than 15 points. And that was game 3, the first game at home, or first game on the road. First road playoff game, he put up 6 points. But his first playoff game, he put up 17 and had 5 steals. His second game, he had 24, 4 assists. His fourth game, he had 24. Game 5, he had 23. Game 6, he had 16. And the closeout game, he had 23 and hit the biggest shot. And the second round against Portland, of game 1, he put up 23 and 8. Game 2, he did have only 15, but he had 7 rebounds. I guess only 1 assist. In game 3 and 4, in both those games, he put up 34 points. In game 3, he had 34, 5, and 9. In game 4, he had 34, 5, and 4. Game 5, he had 18, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds. Game 6, he had 24, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. And then the final game, he had 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. So I'm looking at numbers. He averaged right around 20 to 21, I would assume. I don't see, let's see, do they have, let's see, points per game throughout the playoffs?
I'd be curious to see what his splits were and everything. And I, to be honest, when you read that off, I don't remember him playing that well. I mean, from the stats, it looks like he played well. But I mean, I guess from the context of what I remember, it just felt like there was still times where there was more left to be desired, especially in Game 7 of that Portland series.
Yeah,
I mean, when Jokic needed somebody, anybody to hit a shot in that game, nobody could.
Right,
and that's just where I.
But
think
that's the thing. No one could. No one could, including
but,
Dame.
I mean, if there's anybody that needs to come to the aid of Jokic, it has to be Jamal, because he's the second best player.
Right.
And he did play well. I mean, you just listed the numbers, and like I said, I'd be curious to hear what his splits were in terms of like his shooting splits and how he looked. Because I do remember games. I don't know. It just felt like there were just times, even though he had good numbers. I mean, it's all about the context too with these numbers too. It just feels like there was times where when you needed him most, he wasn't always completely there. But then again, too, I mean, when the Nuggets look dead, I mean, he's the one that raises them up sometimes in the most unlikeliest of situations.
Well, and we reacted to game 3, and he hit some of the biggest shots at the end of regulation. And they stopped going to him. If they would have kept going to him, they would have won that game in regulation. They would not have even gone to an overtime, let alone 4. So that's, yes, when it comes down the stretch, Jokic has hit game winners, and he's been able to make plays, late in games. But the guy that really needs to step up and hit those shots is Jamal. It has to be, because he can do the most. Jokic is limited. For as great as he is, he's limited, and that's why I don't believe that you can have your center be the best player on your team and win a championship. I just don't. And it's because of those reasons. When it comes down to when you need them the most, they are limited. Jokic is a little less, just because he's able to make the passes that he can. He's a point center, so he's a little less of a liability as far as being your best player as a center. But at the same time, he's not athletic. He can't necessarily create his own shot like Jamal can, or other guys, even like Will Barton can, right? So he's limited in those ways, and that's why they're gonna need someone like Jamal Murray to step up in those moments. They're gonna need Michael Porter Jr. eventually. Maybe not this year because he can't get it defensively, but in the coming years, that's gonna be their guy, right? That's gonna hit those shots. But as of right now, Jamal needs to be that guy, and he was that guy in flashes. And we got to remember that it's their first playoff run. He's only 22 years old, and I compare him a lot to these guys all the time, and sometimes it's unfair, but at the same time, he needs to be one of these guys in order for them to get to where they want to get to. But guys like Kyrie Irving, guys like Damian Lillard, those guys weren't doing what he's doing right now in his position. They were not in his position at 22 years old. It's that simple. So he's ahead of schedule. And you're talking about a 22-year-old kid who, in his first playoff run, and those numbers, I'm taking it. So, and in the moments that he had in that San Antonio series in Game 7, they were up by 2, and he hit that ridiculously high floater, and it went in. That was essentially the game sealing shot, right? San Antonio screwed up after that in that bizarre whatever they didn't foul, but he hit that shot. He put them in that position. Game 3, he hit a few big threes, and not just catch and shoot wide open threes. They were step back threes. They were step back, whatever, floaters, whatever he did. They were tough
Jamal
shots.
is allergic to any open shot. He does not want that.
But
he prefers you to run out on him.
He hits those extremely tough shots, and those are the flashes that make me believe that he's capable of not just being the second guy to Jokic, but right there with Jokic. He's capable of being Damian Lillard. He's capable of being Kyrie Irving. Will he hit that? I don't know. He's 22. We got to wait and see. I think this run that they're about to have, though, will show a lot. Because if he comes out there and he's ready, and he was during the 4 months, and he wasn't just, eating cheeseburgers and screwing around, and he was working out, and he was staying in as much shape as he could, shooting as much as he could, and getting ready for this run, and if he comes out there and shows that, I think that shows a lot. I think it shows a lot that Jokic kept losing that weight. It was really easy for these guys to just say, we're not going to have an NBA season, I'm going to relax. And Jokic, and from what I've seen from Jamal, they haven't. And that shows a lot that those guys are ready, that those guys are, and if games start and those guys are just completely destroying everyone and they're looking like they're going to be one of the best duos in the league, at least in this playoff run, then to me, that gives me the confidence that they'll be those two guys, those two superstar capable guys in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm not looking at now because they're too young. They're not, in my mind, they're not in a championship window. And I know I get a lot of people expect them to get to the conference finals. I don't. They could lose in the first round, but if they play and they could get a bad matchup against Dallas, say they get Dallas, and Luka is just, and Dallas is just a tough matchup, whatever. But those two guys are playing out of their minds and they lose in a tough, 7-game series, I won't be upset. Because those two guys,
it's all about the context and
right.
how they lose. I mean, if they go out there and they get swept or they lose in 5,
and those two guys don't show up, then that's
a different story. But if like you said, if they go 7 and it's just a game where kind of like Portland series last year, where people are doubling on Jokic because, which is why honestly I don't know why teams just don't double Jokic all the time. I would, if I'm playing the Nuggets, I'm just going to force everybody else, even Jamal, to hit a shot, because I know more often than not. It's been, well, not more often, but a good portion of the time, these guys go really, really cold. And when the Nuggets go cold, I mean, they get the snowflake from 2K on everybody's name running around. It's a snowflake.
It's opposite of a takeover mode.
oh yes. It's a freeze over. That's what it is. Everybody's just ice cold. That's how I'd play them. But it's always about the context and how they lose. And hopefully, I mean, obviously, we don't want to see them lose in the first round. But like you said, when you look back at that Portland series, as tough as it is, and they should have won that series, I can at least be happy knowing that they fought and they gave that fight. Yes, I'd rather them go out in a game 7 and not be able to hit a shot than them go out in a game 7 and completely get bullied and look like they don't even want to be there. Right. I'd rather that. I'd rather how they lost than how the Broncos lost in Super Bowl 48, where it just looked like no one showed up that day and they just didn't have any fight in them. That's what I'd rather have.
Well, and what you want to see is the flashes. And look, when we talk about the Broncos and we talk about Drew Lock, what do we want to see? We want to see those flashes, right? Mm-hmm. Well, right now we're seeing the flashes, and at least last season, we saw the flashes from Jamal. We saw the flashes from Jokic the year before, and look what he did in the playoffs and the consistency that he had. So that's what we're kind of – you got to remember that if – let's say Jamal is on Jokic's path, right? Well, that means he's 2 years behind. What was Jokic doing 2 years ago? He wasn't the Jokic that we know today, or
eating
even last season.
Honey buns and watching Serbian soap operas and thinking about his championship horse.
Right. So if Jamal is on that clock, he's not going to hit what we saw from Jokic until next season, at the latest. right? So, or at the earliest. So now we could see it because technically this was an off season, so we could see it in this run. So if we see it in this run, I won't be surprised. But other than that, it's not until next season that we're gonna see Jamal start to hit that what Jokic was hitting early last year and what we started to see from him and the signs of what he was, or maybe not even early last year, probably what, because he started off slow last year too, like this past season. So maybe like November, right, is when we started seeing Jokic, or probably early December is when we started Jokic become what we were waiting for him to become. Well, we won't see Jamal hit that point technically until next season. Now, could he?
Right.
Now we're on obviously in that kind of schedule right now, so we could see from Jamal right now. But that's we got a ways to go with him.
And I don't think we should expect him to be a top 10 player or anything like that. If Jamal could be a top 15, 20 guy in the league, better than what Chris Middleton is for the Bucks to Giannis, then they have a realistic shot. I will never get over this. I'm never getting over this.
I'm just saying, say Jamal ends up being, let's just hypothetically, if he's on Jokic's clock, right? We shouldn't expect him to go out there and be a superstar right now because he's only 23.
Right.
He's not there yet.
That's where I have to kind of pump my brakes a lot because, well, you get into that argument, but at the same time, on the flip side, he's in year 4, year 5.
And he's gotten playoff experience. So he's ahead of schedule. Yes.
I guess it's balancing. Yes, he's still young in terms of his age, but he's seasoned in terms of the league and at what point does a guy, and you compared the Damian Lillard stats and they're on a similar trajectory in terms, but Jamal's a little bit quicker in terms of that pace. So it's being patient with Jamal, but I almost wonder, and this is always a conversation that I hear come up too, would Jamal be better suited at the 2 than the 1? Now I think Jamal's developed into a better guard. He's never going to be a natural point guard. And we had George Karl on the show that I work on the Fan. And, he said, I love the Nuggets, but the one thing that they're missing is a true point guard. I almost wonder, and I don't know if Monte can be that guy because I don't know if he's a starting level point guard. I think he's great in the role he is. He's a great option off the bench for a playoff or championship contending team. I don't know if he's starter ready, but I wonder if we'd ever get the most out of Jamal if he went to the 2 and they brought in a point guard. Like what if they had I don't want to say Ricky Rubio, but like a Mike Conley. What if they had a guy like that who's a natural point guard and you allow Jamal to just have free reign to run around, go off ball, and he doesn't necessarily have to worry about setting things up or getting guys going. You can give that to a guy like Conley or just leave that really to Jokic at that point.
My answer to that is, you just said it, Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
And he runs the majority of their plays. If let's say you bring in a Ricky Rubio type player, I'm trying to think of a guy that they could bring in that's a natural point guard. He doesn't score a lot, gets 8 to 10 assists a game.
That's why I was thinking Mike Conley. Because Mike Conley's been kind of his stint in Utah has not gone well. I don't know if he stays there past this year. I don't know what his contract looks like. But what if it was a Mike Conley? I mean, that would be a hell of an upgrade.
I don't think so. And here's why. Number one, most of the point guards that we're seeing in the league now are combo guards. So that's number one. Number two, you have Nikola Jokic who runs the majority of their plays, and that allows Jamal to go off ball a lot. Number three, look at their rotations. When they run their rotations, usually at certain points, they do have a Monte Morris out there with Jamal Murray in the middle of the game. So they do have that. Jamal doesn't play point guard, like point guard, maybe for more than, I don't think he even plays that position for more than 5 minutes when he's out there in his 30 minutes game. I don't. Like, it's usually Jokic, and then it's usually Monte Morris out there with him. And here's another thing. They don't need to bring in another point guard. Yes, they have Monte Morris, but they have PJ Dozier, and a lot of people forget what PJ Dozier was doing out there. PJ Dozier is a guy that here's what's gonna happen when Monte Morris is up and they're gonna have to pay Monte Morris. They might not be able to afford him. They're gonna be perfectly fine with that because they're gonna bring PJ Dozier right up. For whatever reason, the Nuggets are very good at finding those type of point guards, the type of point guards that you're talking about. The guys that don't necessarily need to score, but they're great in the pick and roll. They can run the point guard position solely, but really well, and that's Monte Morris and that's PJ Dozier. So if they let Monte Morris go, can they find another Monte Morris? Can they find another PJ Dozier? Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think you need to actively go out and get a veteran point guard because I think that takes away from one, Jokic. Two, it takes away from the two-man game. That I think is something that's very unique that Jamal and Jokic have that not a lot of players have, not a lot of other duos have. Like LeBron and AD have a little bit of that, and they can play that two-man game. But other than that, I haven't seen what Jamal and what Jokic do. I have not seen that from anyone around the league. No one does that. No duo, no team does what they do. Like you can literally have those two and cardboard put up around the 3-point line, and they could beat you. Like they are whatever, like their chemistry together, that works. And I think if you bring in a point guard that takes a little bit from that, hurts the team. And in my mind, how you build around Jokic and Jamal is you're gonna need MPJ, you're gonna need Bobo, you're gonna need other shooters around them, like how you would build around LeBron. Think about it as it's weird and it's kind of crazy, but I compare Jokic to LeBron in the way his IQ and the way he plays. Yeah, he doesn't have the athleticism, I get that, but his passing ability and the way he leads the offense is very similar. And how do you want to build around LeBron? You want him to have shooters all around him and run the pick and roll, run a two-man game, right? And have what do they look at their team? They have Danny Green out in the corner. They have J.R. Smith out in the corner. In the past, they had Kyrie, J.R., guys who, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, guys who you could split out and have him run a pick and roll with someone and have him dish it out. Well, Jokic and Jamal can do that. And the benefit is LeBron usually needed a big. Well, Jokic is already a big. He plays it with Jamal, who's 6'5", who can also shoot, who can also do all the things that Jokic can do. So they can switch it. So they can run a point guard, or they can run a pick and roll with Jamal being the ball handler and Jokic being the other guy. Vice versa. That's an advantage that they have, and that's why that two-man game works so well. So to take away from that, I just don't think that that's something that I want to see. In my mind, I see MPJ in a corner, I see Bol in a corner, which is kind of crazy, and that's what I see in my mind. And then I see, a specialist shooter like a Danny Green, JJ Redick kind of guy that they should go out and get in the offseason. That type of shooter, that's kind of what I see a lineup being. And an ideal lineup for Jokic and Jamal. And that's what I'm building around. If MPJ eventually becomes and Bol become a KD type player, great. But for now, it should be that two-man game with Jamal and with Jokic. So bringing in a natural point guard, I get people want to see a natural point guard. I get it. But in my mind, the natural point guard, the old school point guard, that player is dead.
It's an interesting conversation for sure, and I like the points that you raise up too, because I do think Jamal and Jokic do have a unique chemistry, and you forget really how much Jokic has the ball in his hands and what he can do. And the Nuggets are in a unique position that not many people in the league can have their center or a big run their offense from the top and make decisions. I love how this conversation. Go ahead.
We haven't seen it before. Jokic is the first of his kind, right? He is the first one of, there's been, I guess, a few way back, but he is, in the modern day NBA game, he's the first point center. So how they build around him is different.
Center with the full package of what Jokic
Right.
brings to the table. We've seen great passing centers, and we've obviously seen centers that are big and can score and put people on the block, but can not only have the footwork and the finesse around the block,
And the
but have the
IQ.
touch, the IQ, the shooting, the passing ability. I mean, he has it all, and obviously he's not the greatest defender, but I think he's a sneaky, solid defender. When he puts his mind to it, he's very underrated in his ability to deflect and steal the basketball away from teams. I think he's got great hands and great awareness even on the defensive end. But I love how this was a bowl conversation. It just turned into a deep dive into just the Nuggets state of their team as a whole. But we're excited for bowl. Obviously, the scrimmage is tomorrow. Hopefully, he can get some time. Before we wrap up, though, Luka versus Zion, and maybe we can get to the Madden rankings another time, because if you go off the Madden rankings for the Denver Broncos, it's horrific. Don't look at it. Shield your eyes, because they're going to be terrible if you go off the Madden rankings. They'll probably be like overall 80 as a team, maybe a little bit higher.
Justin
than that.
Simmons
But
might be a little overrated.
He's a 90. He's a 90.
I don't know if he's a 90 over.
It's fair. It's fair. I could live with that.
No, I'm just messing with people.
Luka or Zion? ESPN. Yeah, Cameron, don't listen. Cameron, you're gonna cry. ESPN put out a poll on Twitter. Luka or Zion? Who do you want to start your team? And I'll be fair. There's a lot of me that felt kind of some sort of way towards Zion, because I hate, and it happens every year, so I should just get used to it, but I hate when these college analysts and NBA guys compare a player to LeBron. Okay, there's just no one going to be LeBron, at least not for a while. I mean, these are once in a lifetime type of players, what we see LeBron do. And they did it with Ben Simmons, they did it with Andrew Wiggins and Zion Williamson. They give them that type of publicity. And I get it, they have to. I mean, that's how they get their rating. I mean, they're a sports media station too, so they have to puff things a little bit.
I mean, they did it with Michael Jordan as far as Penny Hardaway. Right. Kobe Bryant.
Exactly. So that's part of the reason. But Zion obviously is a great talent, and I can't deny that. Now, I do think he has deficiencies in his game. I do still question whether or not he can actually shoot the basketball. Obviously, when he has set shots abilities, yes, he can shoot it. But in terms of, is he a consistent threat out there? Obviously, if I'm playing Zion, I'm forcing him to shoot the basketball, because what he's shown me he can do is get to the bucket at any time. Now, obviously, it's harder than, just saying, just let him shoot. He can't get to the basket, because he can just do it at any point. He's that big, even though he's leaned out a little bit. But if I'm choosing between Luka and Zion, Luka's already a top 10 player, like right now, and he's only in year 2. And I just think he just brings more to his team than what Zion does, at least right now. I mean, Luka is a good passer. I wouldn't say he's a great defender, but he's respectable. At least he has the size. I mean, he's 6'7", 6'8" as a point guard. His scoring ability is off the charts. His IQ is great. I mean, he can shoot the basketball. I just think he offers more to your team now, and I think probably more so down the road than what Zion can. Because what I'm worried with Zion is that he's going to rely too much on that athleticism, and hopefully he develops at a certain point more threats in his arsenal offensively. Defensively, obviously, he's a freak of nature too, but I just worry that he's just not going to develop everything that you would hope that he develops. Kind of like a Blake Griffin. Yeah. That's who I would compare Zion to. When Blake came in the league, I mean, he was just a dunking machine, and that's what Zion was at Duke as well. If Blake would have just developed in his 3rd, 4th year that threat of a 15 to 18 foot jump shot, which ironically he can actually hit now. Yeah. But he's in year 12 now, year 10.
It's too late.
He's way too late. He's still a good player, but he's not a star anymore. Hopefully Zion in year 5 to 7 has that. But if I had to choose between those guys, I'm going Luka, and I don't even think it's close at this point.
Yeah, no, I would choose Luka, and that's more so not because of Zion, but because of what Luka has done. We have not seen a player come into the league and do what Luka has done. Not even LeBron. The guy he's 21 years old. Okay, he just turned 21, so he played the majority of the season at 20. He's averaging 28.7 points per game, 9.3 rebounds, and 8.7 assists. Mm-hmm. That is stupid. That's That's prime Russell Westbrook numbers. And he's 20. Or you just turned 21. That's not normal. That's not something that, that he is, in my mind, he is the future of the NBA as of right now. Unless someone else comes in the league and is really the next LeBron, Luka's the next, like, it's going to be his league. And I would say,
you don't think it's Giannis?
Well, here's the thing. I think Giannis is kind of in the same position as Kevin Durant, where unfortunately I think he's gonna run into the brick wall of LeBron James a little too many times. I think Luka, by the time Luka, and we talked about this with Jamal and Jokic, when he hits 26 years old, that's the number that I always look at. 26 years old. Get to 26 and that's, let me see the whoever player you're talking about. Let me see him at the age 26, because that's when he's at the start of his prime. That's when LeBron went to Miami, and we saw Miami LeBron, which I think was the best LeBron that we ever saw. So at 26 years old, we're talking about in 5 years. Well, LeBron's probably going to be out of the league in 5 years. So really, and Giannis is going to be, how old is Giannis right now? 26? Speaking of that age number, I think Giannis is right around 26, 27. Right around there, probably.
Giannis is 25. He'll be 26 in December.
Okay. So he's 26, 25, 26. By the time Luka gets to his 26, Giannis will be 31 or 30. So he'll be at the tail end. Well, not the tail end, but he'll be kind of right around where like Steph and Clay and all of them are. So he might have a run. And he's still going to be a tough, and he's still going to be a great player at 30. But we don't know how long his prime is going to be. So, will he have 31, 32, right? So we don't know. But I think at that point, it will be Luka's league. And I wouldn't be shocked if Luka won a championship before 26. So I think he's the next guy. As far as the best player in the league, he's gonna, and the best player in the league for an extended amount of time. So Kobe was that guy for about probably from 2000 and because it was Shaq for a while, and then Kobe was that guy between probably 2004 to 2010, and then it was LeBron from 2010 to still now. So you've got, I think Luka will be that next guy. It went from Jordan to Shaq probably to Kobe to LeBron to I think that will be Luka the next guy instead of Giannis. Just because Giannis is a little too old in my mind.
Yeah, he's kind of on the tail end of LeBron's career,
Yeah.
And like I say, he's already 26 now. So by the time Luka gets to, his true prime, that 25 to 30, 31 range, Giannis is already going to be, 30, 31 himself. Right. So he'll be on the back nine of his prime. And hopefully Giannis, he's a similar player.
Right, but during the rest of Giannis's career, he's still going to have to deal with LeBron because we don't know when LeBron's prime is going to end.
Right. So and hopefully Giannis develops what I hope for Zion, hopefully, and he's starting to do it a little bit more now, just the development of a threat. Mm-hmm. He's gotten better in the mid-range, and now he's developing that threat of a three-point shot. He can at least hit it decently. Maybe he goes 1 of 3, right. 2 of 4, 2 of 5, but that helps a whole lot instead of him, even though he can just dunk on everybody every time, it seems like. But no, I agree. I think Luka is probably that next guy because it's hard to see someone right now. Other than that, and the league's in a great place with the young talent. You still have, the step below stars. You have the Devin Bookers and those type of guys. Donovan Mitchell. Those guys are still really good stars as well. So
all the talent coming into the league the next 3 to 5 years. Yes. There's you got Mikey Williams out there, you got Imani Bates out there that has a lot of talk. You got Bronny out there, so there is an extreme amount of talent coming into the league. A lot of talk about LaMelo Ball, James Wiseman, Anthony Edwards in this upcoming draft. Mm-hmm. So There's so much talent, and there's only gonna be more, and it's just what separates, because everyone is probably at the same level as far as talent, right? It's just that there's that one little thing, the intangibles that really, separate them from being just an average NBA player to a guy like what Luka is doing right now. Now, could Luka completely fall off over the next couple of years? Yeah. Is there a situation where could Luka have already hit his prime? Is he as good as he's ever gonna get? Maybe he won't get better, because remember, Luka played professionally overseas. So really, he, professionally, he is probably 26, 27, right?
I mean,
so,
but if his plateau is 28 and 7 and 5,
yeah,
then I mean, golly, I don't know if I can accept that. So, right. I mean, that's LeBron-esque numbers.
But those are just numbers. We've seen James Harden put a bunch of those numbers up, but he hasn't done anything. So,
see, here we go. Here we go. You can't help yourself. You got to disrespect James Harden, but you want to love on Chris Middleton. I don't get it.
Here's the thing. Luka's compared to James Harden a lot. His game is
similar.
Towards right. So, I mean, it's, again, can you get to the championship level? Can you be that guy? Can you win? And there's another level. Luka's hitting the numbers level, and that's great. But what is he going to do in the playoffs? What Jokic did in the playoffs last year was shocking, because he was putting like the best numbers of any first year big man in the league. Like, it was up there with Shaq and Will. Like, they were comparing his numbers to Shaq, Will, Hakeem. It was ridiculous, right? So there's a different level when you get from 28 points a game in the regular season, 9 and 8. That's awesome, great, congratulations. But can he do that in the playoffs? Will his numbers drop? Will they increase like Jokic just did?
Yeah. So, and we see every star player go through that. They love on them the first 2 or 3 years, and then, okay, once you've established yourself as a star, now it's okay. What are you going to do now in the playoffs?
Right. And all the eyes are on Luka already, and he's only in his second year. He's way ahead of schedule. We're talking about
he's going to reach that expectation soon, where people they're going to love you and they're going to show you love, and then it's going to be like, okay, once you hit that 4th, 5th year, now it's okay. So what have you done now? Now, yeah, the numbers are great, yeah, fine, but where's the playoff stats to back it up? And that's, to be fair, that's kind of where James Harden has fallen short. I don't want to say he chokes in the playoffs, because I mean, he's put up some great performances, but at the same time, he runs into a wall. And you can argue too, I mean, he ran into arguably the greatest team ever in the Golden State Warriors. I mean, so how do you, I mean, even LeBron couldn't get past that. So, I mean, how can you really blame him for that? But he's also put up a few stinkers himself where he doesn't show up. So Luka's he's gonna hit that wall eventually, just like Giannis is starting to. The whispers are out there that I don't know if Giannis can be that guy. And if he can't do it, we sure as hell know that Chris Middleton ain't carrying that dang team. That's for sure.
The biggest question in the league right now is who is gonna take LeBron's torch? Like, who's gonna take it? Because he's not giving it up, and he's usually, guys should be thinking about retirement right now, and LeBron's thinking about 3 or 4 more championships. So who's gonna take it? And is it Giannis? Is it Luka? James Harden tried. Steph and Golden State as a team took it for 3 years. KD, but I mean, where's KD now? Where are the Golden State Warriors now? Guess where LeBron is? So he's maybe have lost the torch a couple times, maybe in a few seasons, kind of. But, I mean, it took, that team in Golden State with KD to beat LeBron. The Golden State, if Kyrie didn't get hurt, they would have been 2-0, and it would have taken KD to just beat him for the first time, right? So, it's LeBron's league, and there's all this great talent out there, but no one can get to that level quite like, I mean, KD is probably the closest, and we don't know what's really going to happen with KD from here on out. So, That's the question. Who's gonna take it? My bet is Luka.
Yeah, if I had to bet one too, I think it would be Luka, and it'll be interesting to see. But I think we're both in agreement. If we had to choose between Luka and Zion for right now, I think it's Luka. I think it's the easy choice, honestly.
And
that
most
may be a different
likely, it's probably a
conversation.
player that's not even in the league right now.
Right. Well, of course, because in 26 years, Nikola Jokic Jr. will be in the league, and then we're gonna be talking about who's the greatest player ever. And in his first year, when he's averaging 40, 17, and 12, and it's like, how do you pass up on Nikola Jokic Jr.? I mean, he's a 7-12 center who can shoot 58% from three, and handle the. And I get it, 7-12 before people. 7-12 is not a thing. I get it. It was a joke. All right.
Hey,
It's
you
8
never.
feet.
You never know. There could be another LeBron James that's taking that torch instead of some other player. I mean, for all we know, we have no idea.
Exactly. It'll be interesting to watch, and hopefully, hopefully we get to see it sometime soon. But that's going to do it for today's show. We appreciate you guys tuning in, whether it was via YouTube or if you're listening on the podcast. Shout out to you guys. Again, you can always find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Overcast, or Radio Public. For Brandon Stoll, you can follow him on Twitter at Brandon_Stoll. For myself, at Stephen Priest Jr., you can follow me at that same tag on Twitter. This has been the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.